Good afternoon, Year 5. I hope you enjoyed last week's music by Edward Elgar. We'll be coming back learning a little bit more about Edward Elgar if we have time after half term. But I want to talk today about theatre and music hall in Victorian times. Now, Victorians loved music, and pubs, which were called taverns in Victoria times, and coffee houses where people went and met together for coffee were very popular and often used to have live singers in them, singing to the audience while they were eating and while they were drinking. And by early Victorian times, lots of pubs had rooms specially set aside for Sunday evening sing-alongs and what were called free and easies, just informal entertainment. Someone would come along and sing a song, and everybody would join in. Or there might be jugglers or magicians or acrobats, all sorts of entertainment that was put on in the pubs, which were becoming like musical clubs. And they became very, very popular. And the richer people started to go, not the very well-to-do people, they would go to the theatre, darling, but the more middle class clientele, the middle class people who had a little bit more money would go along and they would have supper together while the entertainment was provided for them. And these would go on till the early hours of the morning. Now, these taverns and supper rooms would have been very difficult places to perform because people didn't stop what they were doing to listen. They would just carry on drinking their beer, being noisy, telling jokes, and sometimes even throwing old boots and things at the people who were performing. Some people even threw heavy things and bottles if they didn't like the act that's happening at the time. Now, in these middle class singing and supper rooms, women weren't allowed. Working class women, they were the people who hadn't got very much money, were referred to as working class in Victorian times, and they were able to visit the pubs but not go in to the supper rooms or to the music halls. And to be honest, women who had a reputation of being nice ladies didn't want to visit these places because they were very rowdy and very noisy and not particularly nice places to be. But the working class women used to go with their husbands and even take their children and their babies to the pubs and have a good old sing along and drink lots of beer. One of the most early music halls in London was the Eagle. It was a pub called, or a music hall called the Eagle. And I think, yeah, it's been demolished now. It's not there anymore. But there's a nursery rhyme, in and out the city walls, in and out the Eagle. And that's what they were talking about. And so we're going to learn a couple of music hall songs today because lots of the songs sung in the musical were fun. They were about everyday life. They were about falling in love, they were about getting married, they were about moving house. And I think you are going to know this very first song that I'm going to play you. I'm going to put the words up for you so you can sing along, and I'm pretty sure that you'll know it. So have a good old sing and enjoy it.
Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer, do. I'm all crazy, all for the love of you. It won't be a stylish marriage, I can't afford a carriage, but you'll look sweet upon the seat of a bicycle made for two.
This next song is a fun song, and it's called Don't Dilly Dally on the Way. And again, it would have been sung in the working class taverns, in the little music halls, and it was a song about a couple who were moving house, and the husband had hired a van, and he'd put all the furniture in the van and told his wife to walk along behind carrying the bird in a cage. A cock linnet is a bird in a cage, and told her not to dilly-dally, not to waste time and get lost. And of course, she dillied and dallied and dallied and dillied and she couldn't find her way home. So have a little listen to this song. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. You can sing along. I'll put a link.
My old man said follow the van and don't dilly-dally on the way. Off went the car with me own packs in it. I would behind with me old coddle in it, but I dillied and dallied, dallied and dillied, lost the van and don't know where to roam. I stopped on the way to have me old dog walking and I can't find my way home. My old man said follow the van and don't dilly-dally on the way. Off went the car with me own packs in it. I would behind with me old coddle in it, but I dillied and dallied, dallied and dillied, lost the van and don't know where to roam. I stopped on the way to have me old dog walking and I can't find my way home.
And so people really enjoyed going to listen to that sort of music. Now, in 1852, a new purpose-built music hall, which was very posh, was built in London, in Lambeth, called the Canterbury Hall. And they started to get better and bigger acts there, and women started to go along. Men were encouraged to take their wives with them, but only perhaps one day a week. And they would be able to have supper. About 700 people could meet together and have supper. And you can see in this picture that I'm showing you, it was very, very posh. Gradually, more and more halls like this were built, and going to the music hall became a little bit more of an acceptable thing. Although they did have quite a bad reputation because people didn't really behave particularly well. Now, the upper classes, the rich people, used to go to the theatre. And lots of our London theatres that you might go to now, when we can go to the theatre, were built in Victorian times. The Windsor Theatre was a Victorian theatre because people liked to dress up and go to the theatre. And I put a picture up of a few Victorian theatres, mostly in London, but most cities had theatres built where people would go and watch plays, and it was a much more civilised evening out than going to the music hall. People would dress up and people would wear their best clothes. Now, one of the big theatres that was built in Victorian times, as I mentioned last week, is the Royal Albert Hall. And it was in the Royal Albert Hall that the prom concerts, as I also mentioned last week, moved to. Now, the prom concerts were very informal concerts playing classical music. People could eat and drink while the concert was going on, but they didn't talk and they certainly didn't throw things in the Albert Hall. The idea of them was to encourage more people to enjoy classical music. The tickets were cheap because people used to stand and listen to them rather than sit in comfortable seats. You could get comfortable seats, but those tickets were more expensive. And the prom concerts were started by a man called Robert Newman, and he started the prom concerts before the Albert Hall was even built. And then they moved there once it was built in Victorian times. And his friend was the conductor Henry Wood. And I've got a picture of Henry Wood up here. Henry Wood was born in 1869 and absolutely loved music. And he became the conductor at the prom concerts for many, many years. In fact, he finished conducting in the prom concert in 1944 when he was 75 years old. And the first half of the prom concert was a very long, long show. The first half would be serious classical music played by an orchestra. The second half would be more light-hearted music, perhaps famous songs of the day, popular songs of the day, and sometimes songs from operas. Now, the opera is something that we're going to talk about in more detail another week, but perhaps some of you have come across Gilbert and Sullivan operas. Some of you may have heard of operas like The Mikado or Pirates of Penzance. We'll have a little chat about that another week. But we're going to finish today by learning a song in the style of the music hall. Now, this song is called Victoriana. I'm going to play it to you and I'm going to put the words up. It's not a Victorian song, but it's in the style of how someone would entertain in a tavern or in a pub. And you can hear by the voice, it's very much for the lower classes. It's full of fun. It's not proper English, but have a little listen to it. I'm going to put the words up, and towards the end, you will see, or you will hear, some words that go like this: rag and bone, any knives to grind, and sweep, sweep, chimney sweep. And they're what we call street calls. They're what people used to go round singing to advertise what they were selling on the street or what they were doing on the street to make money. Now, you might hear people in the market, if you go today, going, "Come and get your apples, 5 for £1, strawberries, 2 for £1, and things like that. That's where these street calls came from. They came from Victorian times when people used to walk the streets selling their goods. If you've seen the film Oliver, which I hope you have, you remember when Oliver opens his window and looks out and sees women walking around the streets singing strawberries ripe, and milk for sale. And it all makes a beautiful sound. And we'll try, and when we get back together, we'll try and do some of that singing in the classroom. But the rag and bone man was someone who went round with a cart and collected old clothes, old material, old furniture, anything that people were throwing away that they might be able to make some money of. They might be able to recycle, if you like, and sell and make some money out of. And in knives to grind were people going around sharpening knives. You had knife sharpeners, people going around with knife sharpeners, and people would bring their knives out to sharpen their knives on the grinding stone. And obviously, sweep, sweep, chimney sweep was the chimney sweeps. And I'm sure you've learned about chimney sweeps in your Victorian history lessons. So that's what that is all about. And I think as you look at these words and listen to them, you'll learn lots about Victorian times and what life was like. And I think you might appreciate that life today is so much easier than it was in Victorian times, even though we're in lockdown. So enjoy the song. Listen to it a few times over half term, get to know it, and hopefully very soon we might be able to sing it together in class. So I hope you've enjoyed a little bit about Victorian music, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
The great 19th century changed us immensely with railways and industry, steel and steam, machines and invention. Perhaps I should mention the great British Empire and wonderful Queen. But what was the life for the ordinary masses, the cities and towns filled with poor working classes? Hit it! Victorians, Victorians, Victorians. City streets were mean, I better warn ya. Victorians, filthy, smelly, dangerous. Victorians, who's that lurking just around the corner? Victorians, thieves, villains, murderers. Victorians, don't tell the crossing sweeper, he just likes to see them hang. So they put out funky street lights, drains and sewers for the grime. More bother trains and trams.